Former Minister of Transport Lisa Raitt is batting 1,000 these days. She is laying a smack down every time she hops on the mainstream media airwaves, and so recently her latest victim was, well, CBC. David Cochran trying to hold the water and show, look, Mark Carney's plan isn't that bad. It's actually pretty good. People like it. It's awesome. She said, ain't having none of that. And I'll tell you exactly why. And it was really fun to watch, and we'll get into that here shortly. But as well, David Coletto, pollster for Abacus Data, asked the question today, were the polls really all fake? Were the responses fake? He asked that question on X, and we're going to dig into all that drama. And of course, the campaign has now shifted for both Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre to Atlantic Canada, because what have I been telling you? Atlantic Canada is officially a battleground region in this election, and that's why they're both campaigning here ultra hard this week, and we'll be getting into that. But first, take the time to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel, helps us to grow, helps get the message out, and helps the video to hit new audiences. Liking helps a lot. Sharing is awesome. And as well as subscribing, if you haven't already, helps a lot. And double check that YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you from the show, because they've been doing that lately. Now let's get in the show. Before we get into anything, I want to say shout out to Jasmine Lane because this is dropping soon. Woo! Yesterday, she was interviewing Pierre and Anna Poilievre yesterday. And that will be available either Thursday or Friday. She's going to be trying to get that out as soon as possible. Editing is going to take a little bit of time because there's multiple camera angles and audio and all that to deal with. But it was fantastic. She was telling me some details, and quite frankly, I think it's going to be an awesome interview to tune into, only because Jasmine has a way about her. If you ever get a chance to meet her, she is probably one of the most amazing human beings you'll ever have the chance of meeting. She has a way of getting you to open up, has a way of making you feel welcome and making you feel warm and safe to have a discussion with her. That's just kind of how she operates. She's awesome that way. And from what I've been hearing, she made Pierre and Anna also feel those same ways. Jasmine will never admit it, but that's exactly what I was able to pull out of my conversation with her. And the responses and the intel and the comments that she got from this interview from Pierre and Anna themselves is going to fire you up. I can tell you that. I'm not going to give it anything else. I don't want to screw it all up for Jasmine, but dude, this is going to be an interview to watch, and trust me, I'm going to splice it up for my own content. I'll be straight up with you on that. It's going to be fantastic. Let's help her get to 1 million views on that when that comes. Just wanted to shout her out because, Jasmine's awesome, and I'm happy she was the one who got that interview. Well-deserved way to be Jasmine. But David Coletto, let's talk about this man, shall we? He is the CEO of Abacus Data. I may have undersold him at the beginning. He's not just a pollster. He is the CEO of Abacus Data, and quite frankly, been probably one of the better pollsters during this election. But he dropped this message last night. He says, what if the Liberals never really led by like 8 to 12 points, and it was just a response bias? And that got the people going. Look at those responses. People were like, whoa. Are you admitting the polls are fake? What did this guy just say? Did Abacus just admit? Like, everyone was losing their minds, and it was kind of fun to watch, if I'm being quite frank with you. But he did ask a very valid question. What if it was all response bias? And the question that people have is like, what do you mean by response bias? And the way response bias works is typically when you're asking a question on a survey or asking a question in an interview, sometimes the way a question is laid out leads the subject to answering a specific way that's not true to them, or having some social pressures around them that lead them to give an answer that, again, is not true to them. I deal with this all the time in the user experience sector when I'm putting together my questions and how I address my subjects. Is I try my best not to inject any of my personal bias as best as I possibly can, as not to influence the data that we're trying to collect. And this was the question that he put out. What if all this? What if the point lead, everything we've been seeing over the polls has just been response bias? People didn't feel like they could be truthful. People didn't feel safe that they could be real, or people didn't want to be real, and people wanted to screw up the polls. What if it was all response bias? That is a question that people are pondering, and even CEO of Abacus Data is pondering the same thing and putting it on X. It's a question that I just want to leave you with that. I'm not here to answer it for you. I'm not here to try and even ponder it with you. I want to leave it with you to have that tension to really think about and have honest conversations with those around you. Was this response bias? And I'm going to live up to my end of the bargain on this. I'm going to pose this question with Reg on tonight's live stream, and we will have a discussion as if this was all response bias, all Fugazi, and the Conservatives have been winning the whole time. We will see. But we get into Lisa Raitt on CBC with David Cochrane, essentially discussing what everyone's been discussing lately is Mark Carney's costed platform. And Lisa Raitt was like, all right, I'm going to tell you this twice so you don't have to hear me say it again, but this is how it's going down. And David Cochrane was like, come on, Lisa, like, what are we talking about here? You can't really be, you got to be a little more fair. She's like, nah, this is how it's happening. And this, my friends, was a smackdown on CBC. And David Cochrane was, all right, moving on then.
A revenue generated component to it. And they've shown us the homework on this, like the stuff to spur housing growth will lead to, extra profits and income in the construction sector. And some of that, will spur things back. But, Lisa, kind of one of the things I noticed as a through line from Carney yesterday was that when the private sector is uncertain, government must act. And that seems to be his justification for the spending, because whoever wins this, the uncertainty all of this causes, the private sector is going to be reluctant to make big decisions and make big spends. So when Mr. Poilievre focuses aggressively on the deficit, I mean, what does he need to deliver tomorrow to show an economic growth and fiscal balancing plan? And can you do it with all of that uncertainty and all the promises?
Well, the reason why there's business uncertainty in this country is because of the last 10 years of a Liberal government creating the uncertainty in the economy and not investing when they said they were invested, and not encouraging business investment and productivity. And all of a sudden they're going to do it now. And I don't buy it for a second. I don't think they have the capabilities or the competence to be able to implement. No matter how great Mark Carney is, he's only one man and he can't do it all himself. And they haven't been able to get out of their own way in the last 10 years. So how do they expect they're going to get it done this time? That's what I want to know from Canadians. I don't know how they think that this can possibly be done. As for what is going to happen with respect to Pierre and his, well, tomorrow we will see exactly how he plans to move forward. They've been thinking about this for a long time, obviously for 2 years. It's about growing that top line. It's about bringing in more revenues. It's about listening to what big companies have said in terms of what they do need in order to have investment in the country, to give them the signal that they need in order to create investment. And I don't know whether or not Mark Carney has listened to the other companies, because quite frankly, he is still extremely silent on, I think, the crucial piece of national security and the national economy. And that is whether or not we're going to run pipelines to Tidewater in this country to diversify our energy market. And he's silent on it, absolutely silent. Well, so unless we understand from him what he's going to do there, I don't think we can actually take for any kind of seriousness with respect to his numbers.
What's the missing piece of the position on pipelines? I mean, he said he will use the extraordinary powers of the federal government to accelerate review processes. And, the one project, one timeline, he stopped short of being willing to force it over the objections of a province and, I believe, First Nations. What's the missing part of that?
The missing part of it is the Impact Assessment Act in and of itself is not just what it says about one project, one assessment. It has a whole bunch of other things in there that are annoyances. We have a part of the Competition Act that goes to greenwashing that he doesn't talk about. We have a part of an emissions protocol in Alberta that he doesn't talk about either, that he doesn't want to step away from there. I mean, there are lots of little pieces that have ground this country into a standstill when it comes to building infrastructure associated with the energy industry in the last 10 years.
Boom. And that was the best part, kind of how David Cochrane kind of framed that whole conversation. Well, you got to spend money to be able to spur the private sector. Things are not going well in the economy right now. Private sector is afraid to act. We have a lack of private dollars in the economy right now. We need to start spurring those people on and giving them some courage to do things. That's why we need to spend the way Mark Carney is saying that we need to spend right now. And Lisa Raitt says, what a stupid thing to say. The only reason we're here is because of the fiscal policy of this Liberal Party over the past 10 years. Are we just going to fall asleep on that? Or what are we doing here? And, David Cochrane again came right back. Well, she talked about pipelines, and is he going to get real serious about pipelines and actually getting our resources out to different markets? Clearly not if he's not going to repeal Bill C-63 and the pipeline bill. If he's not going to take that away, then how serious is he really? And it was just so funny to watch this back and forth. And Lisa Raitt says, I'm cutting through the BS. I'm not taking this. And this is how it's actually going down. And please, I beg you, be honest with your listeners, the three that you still have. Okay, come on. What are we doing here? It was interesting to see her embolden the other panelists on this show. Those who actually are very lefty even came to an agreement of this is not really a great plan.
No, it was about more spending. I think that Mark Carney is a serious guy, and he is a banker to the core. He wasn't going to fluff these numbers. Now, that doesn't mean that they're written in tablets of stone with a hammer and chisel. We all know that they're going to change. And there's a certain amount of pixie dust involved with all of this, and a certain amount of guesswork, because we don't know what the impact yet and how widespread the impact yet is going to be of the tariffs. But doing things like abandoning fiscal anchors, I think, is the kind of thing that breeds cynicism and saps the credibility of all governments. And they've abandoned some fiscal anchors that were there just a few months ago. And I'm not sure that that's a great thing for Mr. Carney, for the Liberals, and for politics in general.
What an honest assessment. I appreciate that. They abandoned fiscal anchors that were just there even just a handful of months ago. Where did they go? We talked about even the financial guardrails, and we just went right through them. We don't care. And then here's Mark Carney just blowing up the whole street and setting up a whole new world of thinking. And everyone is like, this is more wrong. The only people who think this is a good idea are those who can't think outside of themselves, who can't think at a macro scale of how harmful these policies truly are. Well, of course, yeah, we're having a tough time with the economy. It makes sense that we need to spend more money to get the economy going. My friends, that was proposed in 2015, and they did it in 2015, and look what we ended up in 2019. A boatload of debt with a whole lot of nothing. Then COVID hit, and they kept getting worse, and they snowballed, and now we're here in 2025, can't afford a house, can't afford food, can't afford electricity, and can't afford to live. So what do you think is going to happen? Anybody who can think through this honestly knows that this was a bad idea. And as we move our focus, as I said, to Atlantic Canada, Lisa Raitt was also talking about the demographics that make up Nova Scotia and how it's going to be a bit of a battle for the Conservatives to make up any ground in Atlantic Canada because of the lockdown that the Liberals have on the boomer demographic and the struggle that they're facing in Nova Scotia, and she was talking about that here.
From the Liberal platform is $130 billion in spending and tax cuts over 4 years. That's going to add $225 billion to the federal debt. Now, they don't have included in that any of the revenue and increased economic activity they say their measures will generate. So it's the headline that stands, right? So what do you make of what we saw from Mark Carney on Saturday?
Well, I think it's a good indicator of why they're doing well in the Maritimes, to be honest, David. If you take a look at the demographics of the Maritime provinces, they run about 22 to 25% over 65 years of age. And those who are over 65 years of age really don't have a problem with the spending that is coming from a Liberal government. In fact, they embrace it. They enjoy it. They are not concerned about what's happening in terms of how the spending is going to impact the future. And I say that because I find it very frustrating, because I look at the younger demographic who are really concerned about it because they're the ones that are going to be stuck with the bill. So all of that to say, I can see why the message of spending and spending more is going to resonate in Atlantic Canada, given their demographics, and why it would be a little harder for Pierre to punch through talking about the problems associated with spending that much money, because he's talking to a population that votes that isn't really interested in being concerned about that spend.
Tough reality, but it's the truth. I know we do have a boomer segment who watch this show. Clearly, you are the exception in this, right? But there is a swath of the population who says, I don't care, spend whatever you got to spend, I need to be taken care of. And they may have only so many years left on this planet, and guess who's going to be cleaning it up? Myself, my kids, and their grandkids. And that is the problem and the tension we are seeing between the generations during this election, and why we are seeing such huge gains being made by the Liberals in Atlantic Canada. And Mark Carney, though, is not taking those gains for granted, as he appeared at River Breeze Farm in Onslow, Nova Scotia. And Mark Carney was doing his thing and talking. This was just kind of a funny clip of him making light of the World Economic Forum and everyone laughing with him.
It's okay. We'll get to the World Economic Forum in a moment, guys. I'm just getting sorry. Just waiting, listening for the orders coming. Oh no. Some things never change. You got to move on. Move on. We got to move on as an...
Look at the caption of this. Andrew Friesen. This is genuinely funny. At a campaign event, Mr. Carney addresses Poilievre supporters protesting some WEF conspiracy nonsense. Why do they keep going down this path? I don't know. They keep dismissing the idea of the World Economic Forum, that it's not real, they're not having an impact, they're not doing anything aside from the fact that our government has signed contracts with them for them to have direct control and say over how we do things in this country. Those papers, we can provide them for you. If you think it's a conspiracy, we can provide you the information. We covered it on the show before. We can do it again. Holy jumping, these people drive you nuts, don't they? They drive you to drink. It's crazy. But this is just more to show that Carney and his campaign are on the ground here in Nova Scotia, but so are Poilievre. Going to be doing his rally in Trenton, Nova Scotia tomorrow night. We will be having our boy Reg will be on the ground tomorrow night at that rally. So if you happen to be there, feel free to say hi to Reg. I'm sure he'd love to say hi to all of you. I would love to be there. Can't because I know you guys have been bugging me about it lately, but wife is about to pop really any day, so I can't afford to be an hour and a half away from home, unfortunately, that night. However, I know you guys will have a great time, and I'll be watching from home, and hopefully, maybe I'll be watching from a delivery room. Maybe actually I won't be watching at all. Who knows? We'll see what happens. Reg will be there. He'll be happy to say hi, and we'll be live streaming the event. It'll be a lot of fun. But as we finish off, Jamie Baptiste, Liberal candidate, running in Cape Breton, promising lick a chicken to his followers who vote for him. They say, go on down and vote and come over to our headquarters and we'll give you some lick a chicken. Oh, you jumping.
Hey, it's Mariah at the Eskasoni headquarters, and we are bringing lick a chicken to Eskasoni for dinner. It's our last push for the advance polls. Polls close at 9. We have a limited amount of chicken, so come down and vote at 76 Logan Drive, and then come down to our headquarters, Brenda's, and get some chicken. We have limited quantities, so come on down.
What are we doing here, man? Gosh. Campaign's on a budget. What can I say? You have a cardboard cutout of Jamie Baptiste sitting in the background and someone clearly holding it. And like, hey, come on down. We got to lick a chicken, which is a staple in, I believe it's Sydney, Cape Breton. I could be wrong on that. And I've had some friends who live up there, and lick a chick across the street is like a treat. And here they are saying, hey, come on down. We bought some lick a chicken. Come on down after you vote. We'll come and hang out. Limited quantities, of course. Oh, man, this is just funny to watch. Classic. I'm just ranting at this point because your boy's tired. I'm a little emotionally fried, but we're out here having a ton of fun, folks. But anyways, enjoy your day. I will see you live tonight. We will be foregoing our afternoon segment, unfortunately, but I'll be with Reg tonight, live stream. I'll see you there. Have yourselves a good one. I'm out.